Something that I always say to people, do not look at what other people are doing. Just stay in your own lane. Talk about what your point of difference is. Because if you have a point of difference that someone else doesn't have, why are you looking at everyone else? Let them be in their own lane.
Welcome to Pure Gold Marketing. G'day, I'm Edwin Davis, your host. Join me in this series as I speak with marketing and communications experts from across Australian industry. We'll tap into their vast experience and wisdom to bring you valuable insights and perspectives. And of course, some interesting stories along the way. So join us on Pure Gold Marketing, where every episode is worth its weight in marketing gold. Welcome back, everybody, to Pure Gold Marketing. Now, in this episode, we've got a real treat for you today. We're talking all things marketing and communications for the Australian rail industry. And I think you're really going to enjoy this one. We've got special guest Billie Stanic joining us. Now, Billie is currently the Senior Manager of Marketing at the Australasian Railway Association, the ARA, and has also played a huge part previously in growing the brand and communications for rail construction company Martinez, where she was head of marketing and communications there. Now, what I love about what we chatted about was Billie's passion for the industry, and you see that come through in the content and the communications that she produces. And so we dive deep into hearing about how she gets her passion, her curiosity for the details, all things rail and construction, and how vision helps align all of her activities and her approaches to marketing and communications. So let's dive into it. You're really going to enjoy this. Here it is. At the time of recording, Billie was working with the ARA. She's now the bid catalyst at Aurora Marketing. Welcome to the show, Billie.
Thanks, Edwin.
Thanks so much for coming on. How's your week going so far?
Yeah, really well. Flew in this morning from Sydney into not really sunny Brisbane, but it's still pretty amazing.
Yeah. I'm glad that you could come up. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Billie, you are an absolute legend in the rail industry when it comes to...
Can't build anything, but, I do talk and stuff and market.
That's it. And a lot of people have seen what you've, had your hand in. So I'd love to hear a bit about your background, I guess, to kick off. Firstly, how'd you get into marketing? I know you'd kind of come from a health background and things like that. And then how'd you find yourself in the rail industry as well?
It's a bit of an interesting story, definitely one that I didn't see. I started out in graphic design, of all things. I studied visual communications, and I quickly learned that there was so much more to, communicating and talking to people. And, the role that graphic design played was big, but it was also minor. There was so much more around that I found a fascination and interest in, and that was called marketing. And it was also something it's like quite sexy that everyone talked about when you're at high school, like, I want to get into marketing, I want to do PR. And I'm like, I'm not a very great writer, or I don't know if I could do that, but I love designing and I was very creative and everything like that. So I went down the path of studying visual communications, ended up graduating and went into a role that was in packaging first. Well, actually, I was also there while I was at uni, so I wanted to get experience because I was very impatient and wanted to get a job and all of that fun stuff throughout uni. But ended up in retail packaging, so working for Country Road and, retail brands like that. And then I was like, I need to hop out of this because I want to challenge myself more. So I applied for a communications role at a government organisation called Health Infrastructure, and knew nothing about construction, knew nothing about health. But the interesting thing was, when I was reading the advertisement for the role, was it was a graduate role and you'd be able to just look at all different facets of communication and stakeholder engagement and things like that. So
it really gave you a broad kind of learning across a few different areas.
It did. And I think also that when I applied, it was a really great process, but also the interview process and the people that I spoke to at the interview, they were very passionate about construction. And I was like, what is this world of construction? Why is everyone so passionate about it? And I was there for 4 years. I had one of the best managers you could ever have. She pushed me in all directions and believed in me, which is sometimes you probably all that you need sometimes. And she basically enabled me to go in all sorts of directions. I dealt with media, wrote briefings for a minister, things that I would never have done.
Yep.
And in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm not a great writer.
Yep.
But then all of a sudden I developed such a love for it.
Fantastic.
So that's how it all happened. It's a little bit of a long story, but essentially people opened up those doors for me, and I didn't know that those doors even existed. So
and that's where you grew your passion in terms of communicating stories and that sort of thing.
And I think that's also like in health, when you work on major hospitals like I had, you do a lot of consultation around like the clinical services delivery and what the plan for the hospital looks like, and the travel from one area to another area of the hospital, making sure that it's efficient for the doctors and the staff, and also making sure that the patients get to where they need to in time. So it is kind of, it's very interesting getting into the detail of it. But more so than anything, I met a lot of people in regional areas, in metro areas, but also contractors, and their passion for what they do every day in and out, and how much they live and breathe it. Yeah. And I just fell in love with that, because you can't fake passion. And if you're not passionate about something, you can tell. And I think I've somehow also just absorbed all that passion from everyone, and now it's instilled in me, especially about construction, but also for people, like people's stories in the health space. You talk to ambulance people, all sorts of, from all walks of life, every facet, and they all have a story, and it's intriguing. Yeah,
it's fantastic to see that passion come through. Every time I see, work that you're putting out or what you're helping build, I see that passion in there as well. Now, health is very different from rail. How did you then make that jump into the rail industry? Can you give us a bit more insight there?
So I was in construction for a very long time, and honestly, if anyone's considering a career, look into construction. It is awesome. But in the rail space, I actually, like a lot of people will tell you, they fall into rail. Never did I think I'd be in rail. Loving all the machines that they use to construct things, to maintain things, trying to find the whys of, why they do what they do and how they do what they do. But again, it was something similar, like the people in the rail industry, they're just passionate people, and they are, I don't know, it's kind of like the same as health. Everyone has a story and everyone works very hard, especially the guys out on site. Like, that's my favourite place to be, out on site, listening to their stories, their experiences, and taking that back and feeding it, to a wider channel, because I've always said marketing is very selfless. If you do true marketing, it's a selfless thing. And it's a natural process. If you love something, if you're passionate about it, it's so easy to talk about it.
And it's not about making yourself or your company look good, but it's like the marketing, you're making others the hero of those stories as well.
Yeah, and it's like celebrating it, celebrating someone else's success, because the more and more you talk to people, their stories add up to the success of that particular moment in that company or in their life, or it's not something that happens overnight. So it's interesting, like I think about Martinez, for example, and we used to say at the time, so like 15 years at that point, Martinez is an overnight success, 15 years in the making. So everyone automatically saw what we were doing and the scale of what we were doing and how many people were involved in the success of that. And it felt like it was overnight, but it was actually a very long time. And, it was an idea 15 years ago, and then it only came to inception, like tangibly at that point.
Yes.
Hence the visuals that we all created with you. So, it's an interesting thing. And I think people forget that. I mean, I remind myself of that often, is that someone's talent isn't what you see in that moment, what you see on video. It's actually years and years of preparation, failure as well, I might add.
Lots of learnings along the way.
Lots of learnings, and picking yourself up and going, yep, cool, let's just keep going. And that resilience I see in rail. People are very resilient in rail. It is a very hard industry, especially if you're in the construction space. Mm-hmm. And it's from a construction side, that's kind of how I see it. Obviously, there's a lot more to it, but from an operational side, there's also something that I tell myself when I'm doing anything related to operations. I don't know how to operate any network. I don't know how to build anything either. But I always think, when you are at a train station, you are waiting for a train that has been timed because of someone and the scheduling and everything like that, because of the capacity of the network, the train's available. All of those small details are so critical to the success of anything that they do in the operational sense. And it's the same like that in construction. Details matter. So when you're at the platform waiting for your train, that person isn't thinking about, oh, I wonder who cleaned the train this morning. I wonder who is actually driving the train this morning. Oh, who ensured that the maintenance on this train was done to ensure that it was available for me? If you have a seamless kind of transition onto a train, no one thinks about it. So that's why I find it interesting, because those things no one thinks about, and because they don't know. And it was a lot like me. I didn't know. Yeah. And I was that same person going, yeah, just get the 1010 into the city and, you know.
Commute, yeah.
Yeah.
So as a marketer, is that sort of part of seeing those details that help bring together a company's capability or an industry's capability,
100%.
all the little bits and pieces that go into it?
Yeah.
How do you find, I guess, how do you find and share those stories, or how do you know what's worth sharing and communicating as a marketer?
This is going to sound really lame, but it's something that I feel. Like, I think if I feel something, someone else will feel it too. If it resonates with me to some degree, if it excites me, if it elicits some emotional response, it will excite other people too. I think excitement and, you know, even humour is very contagious. So they're two very critical things in marketing, I feel.
And is this because you know these people? Like, you know that the sort of excitement, you know what's going to excite them, so you understand whether it's people on the ground or people in the office, like you know what makes them tick?
That's a very interesting question, actually. I've never thought that deeply into it, but I'm going to try and answer it. I think it's how do I explain this? I think it's a little bit of everything. It's understanding people's pain points first. I think pain points are very interesting points that will lead you to great marketing content. So if someone has an issue, 50 million other people probably have the same issue. And if you're, like case studies, for example, if you have a really good case study in marketing, it will resonate not just with the local audience that you know of. It might touch on people that are international, and they're like, oh, I want to partner with those guys. Maybe we can resolve this issue over here that we have in, you know, I don't know, somewhere in Europe. So that stuff I think is very powerful in marketing. There's opportunities that I have seen through things that not just that I have done, but other marketers have done, that has resulted in bigger things that we didn't see, like collaboration with different businesses. That stuff is magic. And it makes not just them better, but the industry better. And one of the things as well that's the same as health and also the same in rail is that people work for the industry. They aren't so much about the company they work for or the close circle of people they're in. They actually want to work so that the whole industry benefits. And I think that's something that's very unique in rail. It's similar in health too, because there is a lot of like outreach networks and things like that in that health space. But rail, more so, you see it, like it's in front of you. Yeah.
So let's get down to the nitty gritty. At Martinez, for example, obviously a growing company, rapidly growing, a growing brand that's become prominent in the industry. How did you, as a marketer and communications expert, help develop that brand at Martinez?
Well, it was one of the best jobs I've ever had. It was joining a company that was about to absolutely fly in every way, in terms of capability, scale, you know, the projects that they were bidding on and the partnerships that they forged. It was just, you just saw the trajectory just skyrocketing, and I wanted to be a part of that. And the vision that so for example, Treven, the owner and CEO, he had this massive vision for the company and he just went for it. And I wanted to be part of something like that, where it was just giving it a massive go. And that's what I did with marketing. I was just like, let's see what happens. Let's take all of these stories from the people that we work with first, because it was all about the people. We started off, because I always say, without the people, you don't have a company. Your systems can run, but who's using them? You can win projects, but who's delivering them? Are they good quality and things like that? So at the time, I was very lucky. We had the most passionate people there. that would help and go above and beyond to help me get photos with you. And on Carmichael Rail Network, there were lots of days that we were out in the heat and the guys were on site helping us out with photos and content and, giving us little ideas of what we can shoot because they knew the site so well.
Yep.
So I will be forever grateful to that team for supporting me, because the last thing they need is a marketing person coming out on site going, hey, I need a photo.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
They've got a project to deliver. But no, it was definitely the people. It was the support I had to, and it was the vision that I saw that I wanted to basically bring to fruition in real life. And that's important, a vision.
Yeah. So how did you take that? What sort of tactics did you use to help implement getting from where they were over a few years period to growing that? I know you're a guru when it comes to marketing on social media, LinkedIn. Do you have any tips or advice there in terms of what worked well for you at Martinez?
Well, it was making sure that there was a variety. Like, I did not want to stick to a couple of themes. It was everything. So I always look at marketing like an equation. If you have the right things in that equation, it will equal success, or it will equal something unique that no one's seen before. And I saw an opportunity with Martinez. No one was showing the great things about rail, the behind the scenes stuff that I was getting excited about. And, when we got a new machine or something like that, I was like, what is that? What's a tamper? Or what's a ballast regulator? What? And then people would tell me about it and I'd be like, okay, yep. And I'd have my little notebook with me, write all the bits down, make sure I checked it, because definitely not an expert here. But, and it brought everyone along on that journey. And I think one thing is to value people. And I wanted to show that I valued anyone that I worked with by showing them the respect through the marketing content. I didn't want it to be a motherhood statement. And I think that's where marketing falls short with motherhood statements. And I'm sorry to say AI, I can spot a mile away when someone's using AI for social media. Please stop. Please stop using AI for social
Billy's
media.
plea for today.
I mean,
AI. It's obvious.
It's so obvious.
That's right.
And yeah.
But just like you say, I think I see that as well a lot. You see the companies that have a strong brand and that are communicating successfully, they are not, I guess the marketing and comms teams behind that have that curiosity.
Yeah.
And they want to understand the people. They want to understand not just like one level of like, oh, we make rail networks or whatever, but they want to know the nitty gritty of what goes on and help tell all those little interesting stories.
And it's like a puzzle piece, I always think. So when you come up with a marketing strategy, each one of those pieces of the puzzle makes up makes that vision basically that we were talking about before. And without that planning and without that, also, I actually think the vision's much more important than even the planning. And one thing that I will say, being part of a company that grew so quickly like Martinez did, it was awesome. There was always content, but you had to stay curious and you had to ensure that you were engaging with people. I think engagement is such a key, critical thing, and making sure that you've got that trust, because you can engage with people across the business as much as you like, but the way that you do it, it needs to be authentic so you get that back from them. And I think one other thing, if I can just add, I always say I'm not an expert. I definitely am not an expert about anything. I will forever remain a non-expert, and I want to remain like that, because the more that I ask, the more that I learn, but the more even then I want to ask. So that's where that content flow is critical. And I think when you are in marketing, you're actually given a huge privilege by the person that either owns the company or is heading up the marketing team that you report to, because you're telling someone else's story. You're not telling your own story. And what I also would try to do in the like Martinez side, and I think I even did it before Martinez, is show my experience being part of that and through my own channel. And I wanted, like, of course, authentically I wanted to do it, but it was never about me. It was, I'm excited about things that are in front of me, and I want to tell everyone about them, because I wish that I had this kind of exposure to rail, for example, or even construction for that matter, when I was at uni or when I was in high school, and knew that there was this other big world of passionate people that I could be part of. And I also think that, just take chances. Like, just go for it. Give it a crack. Honestly, just give it a crack.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You change it. And that's the great thing about marketing. You pivot. And that's one thing that I advise people to do is be able to think on your feet. Usually that's when some of that magic happens, because there is a lot of unexpected stuff that you find out on site that creates incredible content that you did not see coming. And so I always say it's great to have a strategy. It's great to be prepared. Forearmed is forewarned. No surprises approach, all the stuff that I regurgitate every single time. But leave room for that 20% that is the unknown.
Yes, and I think that it's all underpinned by that vision. Like you've said, a really strong vision will help guide when there are unexpected things or interesting smaller stories that come out. Do they align with that vision? And that helps then propel on that that strategy of communicating that out as well. So Billie, I'd like to touch on one project in particular that Martinez have worked on in recent years, the construction of the Carmichael rail network. That's obviously a significant project that a lot of people are aware of in the rail industry and Australia in general. Can you tell me, as a communications expert working on that project, how did you come about trying to communicate that story and Martinez's capabilities and the sensitivities around that project?
Yeah, it was one of the coolest projects to be part of, though. It was a very remote project. They had a lot of very difficult things in terms of, setting up a brand new camp, and the team, what they did out there was unbelievable.
It was over 200 kilometres long, is that right?
210, if my stats are still correct in my head, 210 kilometres of track. And they also did a significant civil portion of the works too. And
all greenfields.
All greenfield. Yeah. So they had to set up camps and do all of the supporting infrastructure to for the camps and to service them. And the plant and equipment that was brought out on site was just incredible to watch. And you were part of that again. You captured it all for us. But seeing those Martinez locos on the tracks and being placed on them, I still remember that.
Spine-tingling kind of moment to see that, hey?
Yeah, and you had that realisation of, wow, this is huge, and where they were at, and seeing all the people that were involved and how passionate they all were. And I don't know, the vibe was just really great out on site when I went out too, so with you. But the marketing and media management, social media management, there was also a fair bit of stakeholder engagement with local farmers and things like that the team managed and organised. And I had very minimal engagement in that area, but I helped where I could. So that was all quite new for Martinez too, the stakeholder engagement side of things.
So how did you approach that? What was, when you were thinking about publishing a piece of content?
Yeah.
What are you thinking about how to communicate those stakeholder messages?
It was really talking to the team. The team just absolutely nailed everything that I asked of them. I asked them, what are the risks? How much can we say? Talking to the client was very great. We had a communications plan that we had, and also the communications plan that we supported for them. So they had their overarching, and then we had our sub underneath that. But working with them and ensuring that seamless communication between all the different stakeholders was done first and foremost. We had regular meetings and everything like that. But the one thing that I really enjoyed was working with the project team and also learning about what things that I couldn't say and I could say. But for the most part, they had everything in tow. Like, they managed everything. They had their own plans in place. The team were fantastic in managing anything. Just a very, very smart Enviro team. Like, they made my job easy, essentially. Anything that I drafted, they went to them, they approved it, went to the client, had a look at it. If they needed zhuzhing, it needed zhuzhing. But for the most part, we didn't have any problems between that communication, because we were all...
You were all communicating?
We were all communicating.
Yeah. So it sounds like the role of someone in comms is not only the communicating externally, but within all the internal stakeholders.
Yeah.
To align everyone on the same page.
Correct. And, the client had a lot of lot of issues I had on site with protesters, and, you know, we helped them manage that, and the project team was a huge part of that. So as much as marketing is, you know, me, it's actually so much more than that. I have, like, you know, 1,000 people behind me advocating for the company and also working on site to make sure that things are okay, and reputational management and all of that. It's not just me, it's also them. So I always say everyone in your company is a marketing champion. Either they are, or they're in the making, or they need to be. So
that's really interesting, because it's about inspiring them, I guess, to see the stories around them, or see, because they're the ones on the ground doing the work and interacting with other stakeholders on the ground as well. So if they can be helping promote the company's messaging as well, that can be really powerful. Yeah. Now we've got a few items on the table here.
These rocks is just sitting pretty there.
These are some pretty rocks from the Carmichael Rail Network.
That's ballast.
There you go. Tell me, so you've learned about ballast. Like, that's one of these things. They're not just rocks, are they? Not any old rocks.
No.
These are a couple of souvenirs from the rail network. You have a bit of a rock collection as well yourself.
I do. I have this weird tendency to, well, now that I'm in rail, and I was actually doing this in construction, but I used to take a little bit of the construction material with me and mark it up and say which project it was from. And, you know, there's a lot of hospital ones, but also there's a lot of ballast at my place at the moment. So not tons of it, just a couple of rocks here and there. But
your back shed's full of ballast.
How did you know?
So another project that Martinus are working on at the moment is the Inland Rail project, another significant one. How did the momentum from the Carmichael Rail Network project and the brand that had been built in that and the communications, how did that help propel Martinus forward into winning the Inland Rail project? I guess what role did marketing or comms play in helping that?
Again, it was storytelling, like just telling the stories of, you know, what the team was capable of, how they delivered it, why they delivered it the way that they did, what were the innovations behind it. So just opening up those different doors and just ensuring that they were communicated basically in alignment with what was needed to be delivered for that stretch of inland rail. And the scale of the project at CRN, 210 Ks is a lot. And it's not just that, it's also the surrounding space around that, because you'd have, you know, landing area, like landing pads, I don't know what they're called, but to store all the material, and you'd have different areas that are basically used to service the project. So managing a space that big and that long, I think that played a huge part in, you know, securing a contract that's very complex. And Carmichael was complex because of various things. And it was the same thing with Inland Rail. From what I remember of working on the submission and marketing bits from the submission and the themes, and like the submissions team did a fantastic job. They had a fair few people on it. They had a plan in place, win themes and everything like that. So that's them, you know. But we just play that small part where we've supported them in the messaging. But I also wanted to make sure that Martinus story was told and the people's story was told. And
when it comes to submissions and bids and tenders, do you think, I guess, the wider marketing of a brand helps, you know, even just having a name that's staying in someone's mind or a capability? Do you think that you know, whether it's on social media or an expose or things like that, does that actually have an impact on?
Yes, I think so. And I noticed that throughout the 4 years that I was there, everyone in the industry was like, everyone knows of Martinus, and I became the Martinus marketing girl, and I'm like, it's Billie, like, yep, cool, yeah, nice to meet you. But even that started to become a bit of a brand of its own, because we had Martinus Marvels that would do more of that storytelling, and you were a huge part of that again, like I mentioned. It was profiling people that made a significant difference in the organisation or brought a different skill set that we didn't have before at the time.
And people love to see that as well, just get to know the people that make up the company.
And also I wanted to get people excited about being in rail and showing, you know, future engineers or people that wanted to get into the rail industry in some capacity to experience it before they actually tried it. And that's what marketing is about, is taking people on that feeling journey. And I know that we live in a digital world right now, but you cannot take out the human aspect of anything, including marketing. You want to feel something, you want to see something, you want to have something tangible in front of you. Like all of those sensory things are such a key factor in marketing, and we cannot forget that, because once we do, it's going to lose all meaning.
There's quite a psychology behind it, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's not just the corporate message, but, like how if I drive past a bus shelter showing a Macca's ad, then I'm thinking I want to go and get a Big Mac or something like
Golden
that.
Arches.
There's the emotion. That's it. There's the emotional connection, isn't
Yeah.
there? So how does that? I know that's something that you've looked into and really interested in, that psychology of marketing. How does that help you in your work that you do? And can you tell us a bit more about what makes up psychology of marketing?
So psychology, for me, it wasn't something that I thought about consciously. I always just did what I felt was right. And I know that a lot of people say don't go on your gut instinct, but my gut instinct has been very, very right. And it's something that I trust deeply. So when you are doing this, any form of marketing, you do have to be first and foremost. And we all learn this at uni. Target audience. Who are you talking to? How can you talk to them? How can you reach them? And everything like that. But I've also noticed if your marketing is really good, people will also find it. They will search for it. Because if they have a need and you've got a solution for that need, they will find you. The words that I used in all of the posts they were my words. Everything that I wrote, I meant it 1000%. And that comes through, I think, with the authenticity side of stuff. But also I'm very conscious of the words that I use because they all elicit different emotions. So word choice is important. Small words trigger people. I always say that. People have different triggers. So if you could also, positive and negative, I will say. So that's what I mean when we talk about psychology, is like, what triggers do you want to trigger? Like, do you want to go positive? Do you want to go negative? And the biggest thing I can tell you is always stay on the side of the light. Like, do not go dark. Always bring in humour. Always bring in some kind of. I love a pun. Everyone knows how many rail puns I love. And
stay on track now, Billy.
I know, right? I know. I'm very punny,
Yes.
So.
But I see it coming through in, like, whenever I see content that I know you've worked on, there's that real warmth behind it and that genuineness, and I think that's what excites the audience as well, and that brings them along on that journey. So I think there's that skill in, I guess it's having that confidence in not having to stick to this corporate line or being scared of going out there. But it's actually, you're talking to real people on the other end. They talk like everyday people. And so you want to communicate that in everyday language as well. So I see that thoughtfulness come through that you really nail. And
I always think, we're all human. Like, we just want someone to just have a conversation like this with, right? Like, we may not know each other exceptionally well, but I'm here and I'm open and I'm honest, and, I'm more than happy to share things. And that's, I think, where a marketer needs to come from. It's not, it is kind of scary though. I won't lie to you. I had those very big kind of fears when I started in the social media space, because you are immediately judged. Whatever you put out there, it's going to take a screenshot, or that's going to end up on somewhere. You cannot say the wrong thing. But that's why I always say this no surprises approach is critical. So anyone that you work with, if you are a communications manager, a PR manager, marketing, whatever, anything in that sphere, always be open to talking to people and be honest and ask them to be truthful with you because sugarcoating doesn't help. So that's why I think everything was quite successful in the Martinez marketing space, because of that. We had trust, we had authenticity, open communication, and we were ready with anything. Yeah.
Fantastic. And it does take that readiness and eagerness, doesn't it? It's you've got to be across a lot of different spaces to keep up with it. Yeah, I can see how you really contributed well to the growth of that company and the brand. Is there anything else in terms of, I guess maybe more from a corporate point of view, managing a brand, like any tips or advice around how to manage a corporate brand?
Take people along on the journey. Internal communications is critical. When a company is growing, it's probably one of the first things that unfortunately falls off. It's just very common because, if you grow quickly, you don't realize like the impact that it may have on other people around you. And that was one of the critical things that we focused on, and including the executive team at the time. Internal communications was critical. So when we had, different things around projects, or if there was a concern around, for example, protesters on site, let's just say that, we communicate to everyone what our plan was, how we were managing it, and if anyone had any concerns, who to escalate to. So I just think communication on every level is critical, but obviously, you can't do it all the time because you've got a job to do as well. And I mean, it is part of your job, but you know what I mean? There's other bits to your role.
So bring your internal team along first to help.
And
so
empower.
they're ambassadors of that brand as well.
And empower people, empower your managers, and let them communicate more. If they need help, support them in the parameters that they need to have in order to communicate properly with their team. Because if you provide someone with the tools, they will go on and be fine with it. And that's what happened with me. I was provided the tools when I was, a graduate. I wanted to be a graphic designer of high-end fashion brands. And then here I am in all areas of rail, but happier than ever. So I think, life just takes you where you need to be. That's what I've always said.
Yeah.
And you may not know that you need to be there. That's all. So, yeah.
Fantastic. So, Billie, as the Senior Marketing Manager of the Australasian Railway Association, the ARA, how is that different, I guess, firstly, from working for a company versus working for an organisation, like a peak body organisation? And what would you say to marketing and comms people that work in private companies? How would they best, I guess, interact with an association like ARA as a member, perhaps to get benefits and collaborate well?
Really good question. So always reach out to the comms team that works in the association. They'll help you out as much as they can. We are always looking to collaborate and promote the great things that the companies are doing and our members are doing. But also we're interested in that. So if there's something that you're collaborating with, maybe with another member, that's a stronger story for us. We have a lot of stories from our board members too. They go out and engage with a lot of other members, and they come back with different stories. So again, it's a storytelling piece. Obviously, there's little things that we can't do, which is commercial sensitive stuff. So if you want to promote a product and things like that, that's a bit of a no-no for us, because it is, we've got other members with a similar type of commercial provisions or product. So it's just how you approach it. But we're always looking to partner with people and tell their stories, especially around getting people to work in rail, which is one of our main campaigns that we've got at the moment. Work in rail, easy to remember, workinrail.net.au for anyone out there. So that's what we're trying to do, really, just promote the great things that our members are doing, any partnerships, and also just any leadership thought pieces. They're fantastic. And that insight in, what you asked me about the industry and where it's going, we have a lot of people really interested in that kind of stuff, and we want to hear from our members. So where do you think it's going, and how do you think your team and maybe the wider industry is going to play a part of that? One of the things that I really like about the association is this, the collaboration opportunities. And again, it's that whole of industry approach. So I think that's the best thing about it, is that members can partner with us, of course, but also partner with each other.
ARA have a lot of events that they put on as well. How do you help in terms of promoting and getting the message out there about those events? What are some specifics that you're doing when you come to trying to promote an event?
Yep. So just before I started at the ARA, they had a rebrand done, and that was rolled out throughout the first, 6 months of me being there. It was such a cool opportunity to see how that's done too in an association space. So that was a lot of fun working with the team on that. I played a very, very small part, by the way. I just kind of came in at the tail end, the easy end. Oh, we got to promote it? Cool. But yeah, it was a huge thing, because obviously there's a lot of documents and all of that needed to be changed, templated. But what we also took the opportunity to do was change some of our language on social media. We took that from having events and taking down the language to be a little bit more casual and conversational rather than corporate-y. So we have made some tweaks in some of the language that we use. But as
Do you have an example of that?
Well, I think for, say, the Ausrail stuff. So when I came on board, Ausrail we basically took what was there and then just revitalized it, put some life back into it. Again, it was probably because I love Ausrail. It's one of my
Billie touched.
Well, it was one of my favorite events that I've ever been to, and it was one of the most successful ones as well. We had 7,000 people come, and I don't know for sure, I hope it was because, marketing played hopefully some part in it, but it was focusing on the communication side of things and the visuals. So making sure people experienced the event before they were actually there. So picking the photos, picking people that were embodying the same essence of what the event will be like, that vision again. So what my vision was for Ausrail, 5 months down the track, that's what I wanted to communicate.
Yeah.
And I hope that played a part. I mean, I don't think I have any stats or anything like that I can back it up with, but...
So it comes back again, having that guiding vision, and then that filters through into the way you're visually communicating, the words you're using, the people that you're getting to help tell those stories.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a multi-pronged approach that is all guided by that vision.
And I think I also set some personal goals on that one. So because I was so passionate and invested in it personally, because again, it's one of the biggest events I think they've even said in the Southern Hemisphere.
Fantastic.
But it's huge. Like I couldn't believe it when Caroline said it. So that was pretty cool being a part of that. But also it's that personal goal. I wanted to make sure that we exceeded, a particular attendance. I wanted to make sure that we sold out the conference. So all those things that I made personal goals for myself fed into, obviously, I mean, I'm sure those goals were everyone else's too, but if I could fulfill them, I would be happy. It will play some form of, some part of it really.
Yes.
Because it's not all me. It's never all me.
I love to hear how involved you're getting in, whether it's when you're at Martinez or ARA, you're really deeply embedded. You're not just coming in to do your 9 to 5 and then clock out, but it becomes a part of you. You see that, and I think that's something that for marketers, like you've said, they need to have that passion or that curiosity, and then that filters through in the content that they're putting out to communicate. Do you have any other tips in terms of when it does come to photos or video or that sort of thing? What of projects and sites like that? What's for another company that thinks we don't have much content, how do we go about trying to communicate? Do you have any sort of tips in terms of how to go about showcasing a company's capabilities?
I think it's probably around what are your pain points for your clients? How are you solving them? Like where's your value add? Because that value add is your business. That's what you're selling. It's not technically talking about this product has 4 corners and it does this. Well, it helps you with this and helps you with that. But what's the vision for this product? I think that vision thing comes back into play. So say you're selling this piece of ballast, right? Where you go, well, where's it from? Is it high quality? What's the density and stuff? That's great. But how does it impact it? Like in situ, we say, in design, like in the situation that it is in, how does that perform? That's the case study side of stuff. So that in play, that is the story. You've got an environment, you're looking at that, how it functions in the environment. It's got its own little story. Where does it come from? Who made it? Why is it here?
Yep.
Why is it the best product?
Yep.
If there are other products in that space, obviously you don't want to. By the way, one thing that I'm very passionate about is never, ever talking ill of your competitors, ever.
It's not going to help in the long run, is
It's
it?
never going to help you. And also they are a stakeholder. They could be a potential partner. So never, that's one thing that I was very, very set on, is that even though someone's a competitor, I also didn't look at their LinkedIn profiles or anything like that because I didn't want it to influence our marketing. I wanted our marketing to be very different. And this was very much specifically talking about Martinez, because that does influence. You might not see it, but subconsciously, if you look at other people's stuff, it will seep into your own marketing.
You'll take your eyes off the game of where your vision is going.
Correct. And that unique brand, it will dissolve. It won't be as unique as you wanted it to be. And that's something that I always say to people: do not look at what other people are doing. Just stay in your own lane. Talk about what your point of difference is. Because if you have a point of difference that someone else doesn't have, why are you looking at everyone else? Let them be in their own lane. But again, as I said, competitors are such a great opportunity to partner with. They're doing the same, well, not same thing, but they're in the same space as you are, and say that, you know, there's an opportunity to partner on something that you don't want to burn that bridge. And it's also not right. That's the other thing. Make sure your values and your morals are always in the back of your mind when you're writing.
Yeah. So when it comes to marketing a product or a capability, because I see a lot on, I do look at a lot of companies in LinkedIn and different networks in construction and rail, and I still see a lot of, it might be a mobile phone picture of like, here, we've got this this piece of rail equipment ready to hire on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And that's their post. It's not particularly inspiring, is it? But you're saying talk more to the pain point and have that vision rather than just be like, here, we've got something to sell.
Yep. How's it going to change someone's world? And what does that world look like at the moment? And how can you better it by putting that into that space? Also, that whole cradle to grave thing, I know that it's a very old school term that I learnt in high school in DT, but that is also critical. That's where your story is. That is your storyline.
From your perspective, thinking broadly about rail and construction industries and looking to the future, where do you see these industries going in Australia? And I guess how can marketers and communications experts be prepared to help support the industry and help their companies and organisations grow in the future landscape?
I think just being able to think on your feet. I know I said this before in the terms of marketing, but just making sure that if there's an opportunity, make sure you see it. And usually the great opportunities are when something unfortunately bad happens. How can you take that and turn it into a positive? Not spin, but how do you turn it into a positive? And there's always a way. Again, I keep saying we're all human. We learn from our mistakes and everything like that. I think it's also the same in the marketing space. So if there is something that you see on, say, LinkedIn, like what you just mentioned around people taking, photos on site on their phones, I personally think there is a avenue for that. It's probably with your team. The marketing side, it doesn't always have to be polished. Sometimes it's nice to see that rawness come through from the people what they see on site. However, as you know, it says a lot if you consistently do that, because it shows that there's no finesse or there's no elegance to the visual brand and the visual photos that you use alongside it. So I think there is a place for it. I don't think it's something that needs to be made completely redundant, but it's, again, the variety thing that I mentioned. I think variety is key. And yes, having a little bit of, look at these on-site photos, but there's this really cool thing called an iPhone. And if you go into the photo settings, there's this cool thing that you just do auto and brightness. And I'm sorry, but there are things that you can do very quickly on your iPhone even just to take up the vibrance, the brightness and things like that, and fix up a photo very quickly. Yep. And that's something that I've taught some guys on site. And it's 2 seconds. And they're like, oh, cool. And off they go and.
And then you're helping get them excited about what stories they can tell through their own lens.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, I think that rawness I actually quite like. I like when people, because you don't want to deter people from not posting. So that was one of the other things that we had a big discussion around when it came to posting online. And this was also before Martinez, actually. How do you empower people and make sure that, the client's okay with them posting about their project? How do you ensure that they're not posting something that's got like a safety, that could be safety questionable, like all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's rare, but when you do that, you open that risk door of potentially posting something that shouldn't be posted online. And all you do is just empower them with some how-tos and some guidelines, and that's it. It's that simple.
And often a lot of, marketing can be from the ground or from employees themselves. If, maybe they feature in a photo or video, but giving them the ability to then share that with their networks, which will resonate and help help I guess propagate the brand and those messages out as well. So
definitely. Yeah. But what you did for us, like with the marketing stuff for Martinez, and you brought the warmth that I tried to, well, I hope I did, put it into the word side of things. You brought that into the visuals. You put the warmth into the visuals that we got out of, like, for example, CRN and all the other projects that you helped us work on. That reflected the writing. And if you can do that, the visuals match the writing, you're winning. You're winning. And that's where you came in and you absolutely nailed it. So thank you.
Thank you. It does take a bit of, I guess, knowing that vision in terms of what the quality of what you're looking to portray. Like when you do have a fleet of rail equipment, how do you show that in the best light? And even comes down to the style of camera work and things like that to help give that really polished light, or frame it in a way that's going to look on the good side of the machine, the best side of the machine, and frame it well. Whether you're flying a drone around, make sure the background is looking really solid and you don't have rubbish in the background, all those sorts of things. So I do get a thrill out of doing that on site to help convey those stories and messages in the best light possible. So that was definitely a wild ride on that project.
That was the best.
Going up and down the rail corridor, and I think even for a video team as well, that learning, like you said, curiosity. If I know how a ballast wagon unloads and how it works, then I can know how to better tell that story and show the capabilities of that and that sort of thing, rather than just randomly trying to capture what it is. So we're always asking questions to the people on site in terms of, why is this happening? What's this doing? What should I expect next? And then if I know that the Kershaw ballast regulator is coming along next, then we can prepare for that and we can set it up for a good angle.
Little sweeping, brooming thing that I can never figure out if it's brooming or sweeping.
That's right, yeah.
But he cleans it and makes it nice and tidy and angled.
That's it. It's fascinating to see all of that and help tell those stories, because on these remote sites, there's really not many people from the general public get to see this. So from the marketing communications that you're doing, you're helping bring that to life to the wider audiences. And then I guess with things like the Cross River Rail project, they are the cases where someone's got to catch their 10:10 train, but actually you can see all the aspects that go into behind the scenes of what's brought that project to life.
Yeah. I kind of just want to, I hope this is okay for me to say, but just a shout out to like everyone that's delivering a project right now. It is bloody hard out on site and they work their socks off. And what they do out there, and I still drive by projects that I worked on, and say like the Northern Beaches Hospital, for example, that's just down the road from me, and there's never a time that I don't look at that hospital when I drive past and go, I was a part of that. So all these people that are part of these major projects that are building things that will last us for decades, like hats off to them, because they're absolute legends, and also you give me great content, so thank you.
Awesome. It's such a good industry to be a part of.
It's the best.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up everything that I wanted to chat about today. I love seeing your passion coming through. I think that's infectious, and that's what I think gives other people that passion across rail and construction as well. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's all good, and I'm sure we'll see you out on site again soon.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening. Now, if you enjoyed today's episode, you can find more on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Hit the subscribe button to get more marketing gold. And also, please share this episode with your colleagues who might find this interesting. You can always find me, Edwin Davis, on LinkedIn, or search Pure Gold Films to find out more about our video production and content services for the Australian industry. Thanks very much, and I'll see you on the next episode.